Hi, everyone. This is Steve D'Alessandro, and welcome to this week's edition of CEOs You Should Know. I'm thrilled to be joined by Gregory Hayer, the CEO of Calcium Oxalate Labs, the maker of Kidney C.O.P. Gregory, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Steve, for having me.
We're
You and
excited.
all your colleagues. I mean, I really appreciate, I mean it sincerely, for inviting us here today.
Absolutely. Well, we're excited to learn more about you and, of course, the company. So I know to kick it off, why don't we talk a little bit about your backstory? I know you had a long, successful career at URL Pharma before founding Calcium Oxalate Labs. What inspired you to make that leap from corporate executive role to really starting your own company?
Well, I enjoy my time in the corporate world. I spent 34 years in the corporate world. 29 of those years were with a company called URL Pharma. The 5 years prior to that, I worked for a pharmaceutical division of J&J.
Very nice.
It gave me a wealth of experience and training, but the entrepreneurial spirit won out. And I made the leap to URL Pharma, and at the time, it was a very small company, only doing about $16 million a year. And I say entrepreneurial, but I didn't own the company, so it wasn't really a full entrepreneurial move. But every single employee had a piece of the company, had
Wow.
stock in the company. So
Great.
I, along with my colleagues, we built that company from $16 million in annual sales to over $550 million in annual
Wow. That's
sales.
incredible.
And we sold that company then to Takeda for $800 million plus contingencies. So from the entrepreneurial side, every single employee got a nice check when we sold the company, and then we had contingencies built in. So as long as the patents held for the products that Takeda was interested in, they all received a check year after year. So that was a wonderful thing from an entrepreneurial
Absolutely.
standpoint. But you'll say, why did I start Calcium Oxalate Labs and Kidney Stone Research Company? Well, right at the time when we were negotiating that sale to Takeda, I succumbed to another bout with kidney stones.
Oh, my gosh.
And I had quite a few bouts with kidney stones through the years. In fact, my first one was in my 20s during Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh, my gosh. Not a fun
That's a whole
day.
that's a whole nother
Yeah.
story. But anyway, I had several bouts with kidney stones, and so now I'm retired, and I start thinking to myself, there just have to be a better way, because what physicians or urologists, nephrologists tell you when you get your first bout with kidney stones is that, hey, drink lots of water and change your diet to a low oxalate diet. I did those things. I still kept getting stones. So I just said there has to be a better way. And I was very blessed that I spent my whole life, career, so to speak, in the pharmaceutical world. So I ended up having developed lots of friends with doctors, pharmacists, scientific researchers. And best of all, I had a friend who was a doctor trained in urology, a pharmacist, and a scientific researcher.
Wow.
In fact, he developed many prescription drugs that your listeners utilize today. So we started researching the world for clinical studies to find out what was done to really help those people with calcium oxalate stone challenges. And we found some promising information. And basically we said, hey, let's move forward. We started focusing and trying to do everything we can to come up with a solution to help these people with calcium oxalate stone challenges. And we were successful.
That's awesome. Well, it sounds like your own personal experience kind of inspired you to create the company it is today, right? So I know that for a brief moment, you retired after URL Pharma was
Yeah,
sold,
yeah.
but that didn't last long,
No, no,
obviously.
no.
What was it that during this experience with kidney stones and doing that research and that background that really ignited you to take that next step to create the company itself?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I had many bouts with kidney stones. And well, as I mentioned, the doctors tell you to drink lots of water. And what's that? That's basically 6 8-ounce glasses of water spread throughout the day, and to consume a low oxalate diet. But they don't give you much more information. So what do? Well, I start looking, like most people do. You go online and start looking into diets. And I started looking at my own diet. And I said, okay, well, I eat a lot of spinach salads. I love spinach salads. It's healthy for you, right?
Yeah, that's what you
No.
think.
Super high in oxalates.
Wow.
I loved iced tea. Super high in oxalates. A real no-no. I love nuts. Many nuts are super high in oxalates. You see all the advertisements for red beets. Heart healthy. Not good if you're susceptible to getting stones. Red beets is one
Wow.
of the highest vegetables with regards to oxalates. So you get the idea. It's very hard to follow every day a low oxalate diet,
Sure.
day in and day out. So eh, I tried to, but it just didn't work for me. So we really started researching, as I mentioned earlier, and we even found a prescription drug that's already been approved to fight kidney stones. I'm saying to myself, why didn't they give me
Prescribing this. Yeah.
prescribe this to
Yeah.
me for me? Well, here when you research, it's called Urosec K. The active ingredients potassium citrate, very high. It's a very high dose of potassium citrate. Well, what happens? I mean, it works, but a lot of people get gastrointestinal problems taking the product. And for those who have maybe heart conditions, you're going to find some get muscle weakness. You can get irregular heartbeat, and in severe cases, even cardiac arrest. So there's some side effect issues that a lot of doctors just don't prescribe the product. So they revert back to something they know that helps. Drink lots of water. I mean, think about it. And I'm going to really simplify it. The kidney is like a test tube. Get lots of fluid going through the kidney. That does help. There's no question about that. But they try to switch to a low oxalate diet. But as I mentioned, it's so hard to follow. So we just thought there had to be a better way. So we started researching around the world, as I mentioned, and we did lots of testing of our own. And the bottom line is we developed a product that works. It has it's called C.O.P, calcium oxalate protector. It has 5 active ingredients. Every one of these ingredients, or a combination of them, have human clinical trials that show have a positive effect in inhibiting calcium oxalate crystal growth. We took these 5 ingredients, combined them, we optimized the formula, the combination, and the strengths. We got 99% inhibition in the growth rate of calcium oxalate crystals. We actually grew the crystals in the laboratory. So we could have taken this product, prescription, but we didn't. But as I said, we got this 99% inhibition. There's not another company in the world that can make that claim.
It's impressive.
So, as I said, with being awarded 5 U.S. patents, we could have taken the prescription route. But at my age, and it's costly to go the prescription route, would have taken a lot of years. But because we had safe ingredients, very safe ingredients, we could take it right to market. I wanted to do that, and that's what we chose to do.
That's great. Now let's talk a little bit about your leadership style as a leader. I know that you emphasize caring and integrity as 2 of your core leadership values.
Yeah.
How do those principles really translate into how you lead your team and you even interact with your day-to-day customers?
Well, from the time I can remember, I've always expressed to managers, my colleagues, my friends, and I really, really believe this. I've learned this through the years, that you can't make a person care.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from within.
Yep.
We can discuss how that happens, if it's how your how you grew up, what you're exposed to in life. But at the end of the day, I found out you can't make a person care. The same with integrity. Integrity is very, very important. I've always told all my managers, even my children, integrity is something no one can take away from you.
Yep.
So in our company, we try to hire people and retain people that care. As I said, you can't make a person care, but we want those people that care about the customer, want to do the best at everything that they do. I can tell you this: I much rather hire a person that, and it have to be the smarts and capability, but I much rather hire a person maybe doesn't have as much experience, maybe as much education, that cares, versus someone who checks all the boxes, wonderful education, lots of training, but doesn't care.
Sure.
I'm telling you, as a company, you'll go much further because you can always teach that other person. But if you have a person that cares, that's going to make a big difference for your company and for your customers.
Absolutely. And I think that also translates into really like your team, right? You want to make sure that they care about the customers as well. How do you make sure that you continue that thought process that you have as one of your core values to all the employees within it? I know that you mentioned like it's not something that necessarily people have in them, but if they don't have them in them, how are you really in fostering your team to continue to do so?
Well, it's every day in our company. We emphasize how much we want to help the customer solve their calcium oxalate stone challenges. But like you say, based on your question, how do you facilitate that? Well, we foster that based on the policies we have within the company. The customer is always number one. Well, you can say that, but what do you do? What kind of policies do you have in place? Well, we take, for example, a product, 100% no returns, does not matter at all. Customer service, you speak with a live human. It'd be a lot less expensive for me to have an automated system.
Yeah.
Does automated system care for you? No. When you call our company, you speak with a live person. They know the business inside and out. They know about calcium oxalate stone challenges, and they're going to do everything possible to try to help you. To me, that makes a big difference. We have a customer, something else we do. We have a customer financial assistance program. When we talk about caring for a customer, there's not
Absolutely.
another supplement company that I know of in the world that provides, like some of the prescription brand companies do, patient assistance programs. We offer a customer assistance program. If you cannot afford, you're really strapped, can't afford the product, we provide the product free to the customer every single month. I don't know any other
It's
supplier that does
amazing.
that in the marketplace. We just don't state it. We how we act, what we do is all based on trying to help that customer solve their calcium oxalate stone challenges.
Yeah, you guys are a living example of really having that mission of not just helping people prevent kidney stones, but also improving their quality of life. I know some other initiatives you have is like your cookbook, and you also have teas that are really expanding into lifestyle support. What role does the education of that overall strategy really play in helping maintain people's health lifestyles?
Well, information, or I should say that the correct
Sure.
information, is the most important thing you can possibly obtain in order to manage your calcium oxalate stones. When you first get a stone, I mentioned the doctor side, drink lots of water, those 6 8 ounce glasses of water per day, spread throughout the day, and consume a low oxalate diet. Well, what's a low oxalate diet? In other words, you have to know, it's not just a diet. How much oxalate should I consume every day? What foods? There's thousands of foods.
Yeah.
How much oxalates are in all those foods? I say I take calcium, especially if you're more senior, take a calcium supplement. Do I keep taking that every day?
Yep.
These are all types of questions that anyone who ever had a kidney stone asks themselves to try to manage the calcium oxalate stone challenges. Well, I decided to write a book called The Ultimate Low Oxalate Diet Cookbook, but it's much more than a cookbook. The first 20 pages are all about managing your calcium oxalate stone challenges. It answers those questions I pose, those
Sure.
and many, many others. It answers those questions for the customer. Now, it also includes 125 delicious recipes that are low in oxalate, sugar, and salt. A lot of times physicians don't tell you. They talk about the oxalates, but if you're susceptible to stones, you also have to manage your sugar and salt intake. So all these recipes are low in oxalate, sugar, and salt. But it also provides a nutritional facts panel. It has a full color picture of what the recipe should look like when it's done. And why am I mentioning all this? Well, it helps the person get on the right path to manage their calcium oxalate stones. When you talk about Veloxa teas, here again, as you mentioned in your questions about lifestyle, what are the major things you have to give up when you have stones? Things with high oxalates. Teas are one of those.
Yeah.
So what we did is we crafted teas that are specifically low in oxalates.
It's great.
We go a step further. We actually send the batches out to outside laboratory. So it's not just done by us, that verifies that these batches are low in oxalate, meet low minimum oxalate standards. Now, these teas still have oxalates. You can't drink gallons of the tea every
Of
day,
course.
but you can have a cup or two every day and get back to enjoying life. That's what we're
Yeah.
trying to do for these customers that are faced with these very painful kidney stones.
So what's next? A lot of exciting developments already, but what's really next for Calcium Oxalate Labs? Are there any new innovations or partnerships you want to tell us about
Well,
today?
we do have some new innovations, and I wish I could share them. I really do. But it's important that we're able to file patents and trademarks. And I can explain that if you like, but that's important. So until I do that, I really can't get into details of new products. But we do have some new products coming, and they'll continue to come. I can promise you that. As far as new partnerships, that type of thing, our products sold. Kidney C.O.P is sold through Amazon.com, Walmart.com, KidneyCop.com. You're going to say, well, what about CVS and Walgreens and those type of big box pharmacy stores? We purposely didn't. Well, I can't say we didn't go to them. We talked to them, but we purposely didn't distribute our product through those channels because they don't have a kidney healthcare section in the planogram. Think about
Oh,
it.
that's
I ask
interesting.
your listeners, next time you go in one of those stores, nothing against the stores, they're great stores,
Yeah.
but they don't have a kidney health section. There wasn't enough products to really
Interesting.
develop a section. So you end up spending millions of dollars to load those stores, put product in, and
And
where's the
you're in a
customer
random
go?
aisle.
You ran a mile
Yeah.
with maybe one row of product, it gets lost.
Yeah.
So my whole life was spent in that arena. So I just didn't want to do that until they're talking about doing that. 'Cause there's been some other products for kidney health. So that may happen down the road, and we'll be there if that happens. But at this point, we decided not to. What I like to do, and we're working on it now, but it didn't happen, is get into those club box stores, like say like a Costco. And you say, why is that? Well, you have a whole skid. So you have a lot more square footage, but more importantly, you have the skids wrapped with advertising. So you get the person walks by. Remember, 1 in 11 people coming through that store. I never really talk about that, but 1 in 11 people in the United States get kidney stones.
Wow.
That's over 30 million people. 80% of those, 24 million, get calcium oxalate stones. So, you know, 1 in 11 people walking through those stores are going to have kidney stones. If they can see that skirt wrapped around the palate, it draws them to the palate. And if they pick up our bottle, it has a wealth of information about kidney stones. So we would move products. So that's something that I'd like to see happen in a very near future. So not to go back to your question, I end up talking too much here, but
No, all good.
but we have new products coming. We'd like to get some new distribution. But hey, with our products now, as I mentioned, there's 24 million people with calcium oxalate stones.
Yeah.
We service hundreds of thousands.
That's a lot.
So we made a dent, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's exciting stuff. Excited to see you guys continue to grow. And obviously, we've talked a lot about the positives, right? A lot about the positive growth, being able to create this amazing company. But I'm sure along the way, there may have been some challenges or road bumps as well. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when you were launching the company, and what were the lessons you learned from those?
Well, one of the biggest challenges. First of all, when we started, we didn't know we were going to find a solution. So you're applying a lot of funds. You're doing a lot of research. You have no idea that you're going to end up being able to solve the challenge. We were able to do that successfully, which is great. But then when you do that, you have to file patents. That takes time and energy. You have to come up with a name. And so many companies, I see it, they come out, there's a name, they have a friend, they have a grandmother or somebody that they apply a name, which is maybe great, but it's not good from a marketing standpoint, because we have a 15-second ad, 30-second ad, 60-second ad. If nothing else, you want to remember the name. So you have Kidney C.O.P, easy to remember.
Yep.
You put that in Google, then we're going to be the first 4 pages. So that's important. But you also have to be able to trademark that name. And you're going to ask me, what's it matter? You've got a solution to the product. Why do you care if you can patent or trademark? I'll give you a live example. We're growing exponentially. So then competitors, or so-called competitors, come out of the woodwork. We actually had people selling Kidney C.O.P, our name, our label, our bottle,
Oh my gosh,
using the trademark name.
that's crazy.
Counterfeiters. We order the product. First of all, it's not our bottle. It's smaller. The label's not the same. But more importantly, the product inside is not even the product it should be.
That's crazy.
Who knows? It could kill somebody. I don't know that, but it could
Yeah.
harm somebody.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. So if you're in a healthcare arena, if you don't have patents or trademark, you better be extremely careful from a liability standpoint.
Wow.
But more important, worry about your customers.
Yeah.
And they have no way of really telling. So it behooves us to manage that. We do that on a daily basis. Without patents or trademarks, we couldn't get them off the market. And then where you sell, they also have responsibility, like the Amazons and Walmarts of the world. They have to
They have
police
to
it
make
as
sure
well.
those counterfeits aren't on there.
Very much so.
Wow, that's so
So
interesting.
that was a big challenge. And then also, as a smaller company, then you have to look at, when you got a solution, you got the patents, you got the trademark. Okay, who are you going to sell to? You can't go out and advertise the world. It's going to be very, very expensive. So you have to really define who are your demographics. Who's going to be the primary people who are going to be interested in your product? In our case, it's adults 45 to 75 years of age, men and women. But then you got to look at the media mix. How are you going to get there? Like iHeart does a great job. And I'm not just saying, you didn't ask me to say this, but you do a great job. And you can define those demographics from the things you do,
Absolutely.
which is wonderful. But you still have to decide, okay, do you use TV? Do you use radio? Do you use social media? What's the mix of each? And look, the companies that you work with have lots of information, but it's still trial and error. So a big part of any new company, whether it's in healthcare or really any other type of product, you really need to be properly financed and funded to start out, or you're going to have a real challenge going direct to the consumer.
It's very interesting. But glad to hear about the iHeart part. So thank you for that. I always love asking this question for everyone that sits down for this interview. And it's, what advice do you wish you had back then when you were first starting the company? If someone's tuning in that's thinking about taking that leap from working in corporate America to starting their own company, or they want to be an entrepreneur and they have an idea in their head that they want to make to life, what advice would you give them?
Well, this isn't going to be unique, but it doesn't have to be unique. If you're gonna sell something in the marketplace, number one is there has to be a real problem or challenge.
That's true.
You have to find a real solution, and then you'll see. Like, go online now, you'll find all these products, but there's not really. Does it really work? See, coming from the prescription side or the pharmaceutical side of the business, it's all about having data and having product that really works. As I said, our product, the 5 ingredients, we all have human clinical trials. We did all the, hundreds of tests in the lab where we got the 99% inhibition. So the product really works. So if you're going to go into a product, particularly in healthcare, you better have a product that works. And then it has to be, well, how big is the market? People say, they think they got this great product, but if the market's not big, you really can't scale it. So you have to be able to scale it where you can actually manufacture it at a reasonable cost, then be able to provide the product at a reasonable cost. If it's too expensive, you're not going to sell enough. Not going to buy. You're going to end up going out of business. You can't make enough money. So there's some of the big challenges that we face, but we were able to. We end up our products made in a CGMP FDA approved manufacturing facility. We didn't cut any corners. A lot of companies out there do, but like the company we deal with makes prescription drugs. So it's that background we came from. We're very conservative. We're going to do it the right way. And we just truly want to, it's sincere. We want to help the customer. It's sincere from me.
You could tell from our conversation today. Absolutely. And that's great advice for anyone that's tuning in. So we covered a lot.
We did.
But if there was one thing you wanted our listeners to take away about the mission of the company, what would that be?
Well, I would say, first of all, if you're one of the millions and millions of people that have calcium oxalate stone challenges, you have a solution now.
Yeah.
So you should really check out kidneycop.com. It has a wealth of information. Whether you buy the product or not, there's a wealth of information there how to manage calcium oxalate stones. So I would really encourage people to go there. And you can go to Amazon.com and Walmart.com, and they're wonderful companies, and we do a lot of sales in those companies. And it has information, but you're limited how much information you can put on those sites. So really, if you go to kidneycop.com, you're going to really find a lot of information to help you manage those calcium oxalate stones.
That's great. Well, Gregory, thank you for being here today. We really appreciate you taking us through their journey, but also, most importantly, telling us more about the company.
Well, once again, thank you for having me. And I can tell you one thing you can do.
Sure.
You have a vast audience, and a wonderful audience, by the way. You really do. I mean, I love iHeart and love some of the shows I personally listen to on a regular basis. But you're so large. We could help so many people if this interview goes viral.
Okay, let's do it.
I say it in jest, but not it really in all sincerity. You have the ability to do that. And if I can help people, I haven't taken a penny out of the company. I've been in business for years. So I'm in a situation because we sold as I mentioned earlier, Europharma. They can give back. I have not taken a penny out of the company. I want to put the money back in the company to help as many people as possible.
That's amazing.
So if we could get this to go viral, we would help so many people. I mean, there's literally 24 million people out there that don't know there's a solution out there.
Yeah. And if you're one of them, or if you know someone that knows someone, go to kidneycop.com.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Gregory,
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in. Tune in next week for next week's edition of CEOs You Should Know.
Thanks again.